Yeah.
Something that hasn't been so great to start this season has been the start for the Minnesota Timberwolves defense. And the main reason for that is the perimeter defense has just been atrocious. They barely put a hand up when guys leak out there. I've seen constantly lazy plays from Patrick Beverly and D'Lo as they're not getting back in transition, and we constantly have guys getting caught up in screens that get leave guys wide open. It's just mind blowing that we don't know how to play defense. And I don't know if there's a way to fix it because it's just the Minnesota Timberwolves, isn't it, Dalton?
Yeah, I think this is a personnel problem. I mean, it's shown on the floor. You can see it on the floor because when they're on, they're on. Chris Finch has so what the issue is why there's always these open guys. They're giving up way too many threes is because defensive rotations. Like you saw it, especially if you watched the game last night, which we'll talk about later, but they are missing defensive rotations. There are times, especially in that. I mean, it was the Warriors swing offense, so it's the hardest offense to keep track of. However, there were times there was an open player, just somebody would miss a rotation. You'd have Ant and D'Lo just standing by a guy. Neither one would commit to the guy with the ball either, giving up an open three in front of them. But because they're just missing rotations, they have no idea where to go. This is like the least smart defensive team I have ever seen in my life. Like they just don't know where to go. And I get it's hard. Being on court's hard, but like you're an NBA team and you're missing these wide open rotations. Like obviously someone's doing. I don't like at first I was like, oh, they're trying to run a zone, but they're not even doing that. They're just completely missing these guys.
Ah,
Like,
jeez. It's like keep your eye on the fucking ball. I
yeah,
mean, how hard is that?
there's there's a ton of reasons why. I mean, there's surprisingly they're only a mid-tier defense as a whole because and somehow their interior defense is doing fine. It's not due to Cat. Vanderbilt's been great. McDaniels has been great defensively.
Yeah.
And Naz Reid's been great defensive. Naz Reid's just a huge bright point for this team anyway. But they are the worst defensive team. I mean, the worst defensive rebounding team, worst rebounding team, period. They're 25th in offense, which is supposed to be their bright spot. That's what that like they have all these players who are supposed to be
Yeah.
have a good offense, and that's not
Well, yeah.
happening.
I mean, the last few years, like we haven't been lower than like 16th, for the full
Yeah.
season. And now we're 25th all of a sudden. We've got like mainly the same guys.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah, finish your
just
point there.
no, I could go on forever, but like
Yeah.
they have this, they just have no effort on the defensive end. Like I don't. So like for example, the perfect
Cat doesn't give a
example
shit.
is defensive rebounds. I just said they're dead last in the league, but they are fourth in offensive rebounds. It's like when they go across court, the effort level, not saying execution, but effort level, totally different team.
Well,
Not last night.
you know
But
why is because we're trying to play catch up
yeah,
and we've got to try hard on offense, but they can't piece together that you also have to try hard on defense.
yeah, and it's just I don't. It's hard to tell. Like if like an average, like when you have all these, they're like you have all this talent. They've all played well. Like typically that points to a coach, but they're also 29th in turnovers. I just think I really think it's personnel. And honestly, after
Yeah.
this far, I mean, at least they're ninth in pace, so they're keeping it. They have the right. That shows me that the coach is like, this is the right system. You guys are a run and gun team. Get down the floor, do what you can. The pace is that doesn't that's pushed by the coach and what the coach pushes onto the team during practice.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, Spurs will always be one of the worst teams in pace because that's how Greg does it. That's how Popovich does it. So like they have the right. He at least knows the team they're supposed to be. Chris Finch. And I was a little questionable about him, but he knows they're first in threes attempted, ninth in pace, three and 3-pointers made. I mean, they're 21st in 3-point percentage, but the
Yeah.
coach has the right idea. He's like, this is the type of team this has to be, and he's right. But there's
Yeah.
no, yeah. Go ahead. Before
Yeah.
I get on to my next point,
Yeah,
go ahead.
we've just had nights where we've been like ice cold. That's why we're like 21st and three. But I mean, just in the reason for defense, like it is just like we're not getting out to the guys that are leaking out in the perimeter. So we end up giving up like 25 points to Reggie Jackson, but Nicholas Batum also had like almost 20 points both those games, I think.
All
So
from three, pretty much.
yeah, it was like all from three. It was like, okay, well, I can see what the problem is. Why are we not guarding this more? But the rebounding is a huge significant issue for me because Cat used to average 12 rebounds a game, no problem. And it seemed like that number was only going up. And he would fight there for rebounds. And on the defensive end, would get us out into transition and we would get easy buckets, or at least we get opportunities. And now he just doesn't look like he wants to try that. He's just out there getting frustrated all the time, bitching and whining about whatever play on offense that he's mad about because he didn't get a foul call, and then it's affecting him on defense. And if it's not affecting him on defense in that way, it's affecting the fact that he's always in foul trouble early, and then he's got to play defense differently, or he's not in the game for a bit. And then it's just kind of how it goes. Like, he needs to be better, and we've always said that. We said that year after year after year. It's year 7, and I'm seeing like finger pointing from him rather than him pointing at himself. He had that one quote where he said like 3 losses in a row could turn to 17, 18, 19 in a row. And then, just like his body language is awful. He went straight to the locker room at the end of the last game, didn't even say hi to Wiggins. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think it's a big attitude problem with him right now. And I didn't think that was necessarily going to be him when like we first drafted him. And even the last few years, I thought this was a guy with great potential and he could definitely be a good leader. But then you have a guy like Ant come in and year 2 drop 48. And he's always got these great quotes about being a leader. Like just today, he said, yeah, what I said last week about how how I got tired of driving to the rim, because he said something about how he was driving to the rim and like he was getting exhausted from it. He was like, yeah, I was dumb for saying that. That's loser talk. I actually need to push through that. And like great players, they get through that that barrier. And it's like, it's very mature. I think he's a guy who obviously wants to keep improving. And that's something I question with Cat, if he actually wants to get better.
No, yeah. I mean, 7 years, you've been good 1 year, and it was because you brought in who is now an MVP type talent. I mean, it's eventually you're gonna be like, is it Cat? Is it you, Cat? Because like you're right. Yeah. It's rebounding's all down. He's the center. He's got to run that. He's got to get those rebounds, and he's spending so like this year he's spending way more and more time out and at the 3. So you're like, all right, he's not going to get as many offensive rebounds. But then like their transitions off, like watching transition offense, he's never the first down the floor. I'm like, what are you doing?
Always trailing. Yeah.
If you're hanging out on the perimeter, you should be the first back. I mean, granted, you're slow, but like center, usually every other center is starting from the paint when they're getting back on defense. You're from 3. I mean, I get it. Like it's really hard, but like, where are you, man? Like when D'Lo's the only one back possession after possession, aside from D'Lo being a terrible the worst defender in the league, like, come on, man, he needs more help. But
yeah, I question the effort level, and like I understand like people don't want to give Cat shit because we love him and he had such a tough year last year and he's had a couple of injuries the last couple of years. But as a player, if Karl-Anthony Towns wants to succeed in this league, he needs to be elite at the things he's good at, and he needs to improve in other areas. And instead, he's thrown away some of the things he was really good at. Like he used to pass a lot too.
Yeah, he became a really nice passer last year. You're right.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a whole lot of facilitating from him. It's just frustrated driving and hand flailing.
Yeah, granted, he is learning. The big thing is like he's not the best player on the team anymore. Period. That's it. Like, and he's learning to be that second. He went from being the number 1 scoring option on the team every year he's been there to now he's 2, which some players that's a lot, but however, like you can't just check out, man. Like he can't like some plays he's just like Edwards, run it, do it, do whatever, man. Like and I'm like, come on, like you got to do
I
what
know. And that just
you're
turns into
so good
ISO
at.
ball. And it's like, yeah, it works sometimes, but you guys need to
Yeah.
work together because that can bring us to another level. But it's like they're not on the same page.
Yeah, the most successful possessions they've had is that Cat and Edwards pick and roll. It's dangerous and like pick and pop, pick and roll, like it because Anthony Edwards, every time they do it, he's able to get Cat. He's able to find him on the perimeter, or he's able to catch him rolling. Like that's been like the best. And like, granted, he runs it and it doesn't work all the time, but it's sometimes he gives like these half-ass picks. I'm like, dude, I could get over that.
Yeah.
Like, but that,
He's
I
not
mean,
tough. He's not
I
tough. And like I always thought like, people saying he wasn't tough. I was like, yeah, I mean, like I'm not gonna totally argue that, but like I felt like that was kind of, unfair in some ways. But now I'm kind of on board with it. Yeah, he's really not that tough of a player mentally or
yeah.
physically.
Like I feel bad. Like Cat is like, yeah, he had a hard year last year, the year before, but and like he's been in a losing culture like for most of his time there. Like some of it's not all his fault, but I just like I'm this fired up because I know he can be better. I know
Mhm.
he's like a better player and he's just not out there right now. He's not being that guy right now. And like
Yeah,
that's
it just
okay.
feels like
But
he's
like,
regressed. Like
yeah.
he used to be a guy who would get 25 and 12 every night, great shooting and the defense has never been there, but we hoped it was going to get there
Mhm.
eventually, but still isn't. But even the things he was good at, he's not as good at anymore. And it's like, great, you are an elite shooter. We love you for that, and that's awesome. But you're also 7 feet tall, and you can drive it to the rim, and you can play some defense if you wanted to. But I don't think the
Yeah.
effort levels there.
Even you can be a subpar defensive center in this league and still be wonderful, still be on a great team. Look at Vooch with the Bulls, successful with the Magic. I mean, Jokic has been good at the Nuggets, and he hasn't been the best defender. I
Yeah.
mean, he's really good now. Like he is starting showing defensive. That's why he won MVP. He was a good defensive player last year. But you can do it. Like we know you're not going to be that defense. All that defense potential you were drafted on isn't going to happen. But you just buy in, man. Like I believe that he can lead. He could lead this team to playoffs. Like I said it before, like that he could have earlier before the season started. But I have
For sure.
one last point, and it's on D'Lo. So D'Lo, when he's not hitting shots, completely ineffective. Just like because he goes cold. He's a very streaky player because when he's hot, red hot, can't stop him. Like, yeah, that's what he did last night. Came out to 18 points, did well, but when he's not hitting shots, he's completely ineffective because he is the worst defensive player in the league. Like I show as if I see that he gives the presence that he's there to try, but there's a few times in a fast break he's the only guy back. It was like Steph Curry and he just moved out of the way. I'm like, he's not going to dunk. Just put your hands up, man. Just stand there, put your hands up. Steph Curry will probably go around you, but at least give me that. He just went like this and moved. I was like, come on, man. But I will say, so because of there's no creation out of the top of the front two. Like Cat and um Anthony Edwards. Oh, one second. Uh, there's no creation out of those outside of those two, and one of the huge reasons that the Timberwolves had a really nice half last season was because D'Lo was coming off the bench. He was doing a Lou Will 6 man of the year where he just sat out the first 2 minutes, came in, and he was able to facilitate the second team, and that was his best. He was getting his points per minutes were crazy because he was facilitating all the shots, taking all the shots. So he was able to run that second tier offense great. So like I think that's worth trying. I mean, you can have Pat start the team with like Pat Bev. You can have like, I mean, you can toss Okogie in there, or maybe even just move Beasley up to the second so he gets more spacing for shooting because clearly he can't create his own off the bench like we expected. So Pat Bev, Beasley, and then Edwards, like McDaniels or Vanderbilt. I personally would rather have Vanderbilt in the starting lineup right now with because he's going crazy with those offensive rebounds next to
Yeah.
Cat. I think that would
Yeah.
that's a decent lineup to
Vanderbilt.
try.
Vanderbilt's probably a better player than McDaniels at the moment.
At the moment. Yeah.
McDaniels only averaging 4-4 right now. Decent defense, obviously getting some steals and blocks, but absolutely non-existent on offense.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough for
but-
a young player because they're asking
yeah.
from him is to be the defensive leader on the floor at 19, 20.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, he's a first round pick though, and he's got a lot of promise, and we propped him up a lot this offseason. So I was hoping for a little bit more. We need a power forward who can give us a bit more on offense.